Hello, Megan.
Hello, Michelle.
Welcome to the Spicy Brain Podcast,
Podcast.
where we are navigating neurodiversity with curiosity, joy, and
Radical acceptance. High kick.
so we just want to welcome everyone who's new. We love that new people are finding our little podcast. And for those of you who are returning, we're so happy to have you with us. We love our community and get such good ideas and such good feedback from all of you. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We usually go through a book of some sort, right? And we kind of go chapter by chapter. Sometimes it's like chapter by I don't even know what sub chapter by
line by
line. Sometimes line by line. Yes, we do. And it's usually something about neurospiciness. We've focused a lot on ADHD, but this book is actually Guide to Raising Complex Kids. And a person in our community had asked us to do one on parenting, and you sort of kind of took it and said, not just parenting, if you have a actual child, but also your inner child. So I thought maybe you could talk about that just a little bit, because I want to make sure, like, as we're going forward, we'll do usually dig in, talk about little stories in our life, dig into that brain of yours or mine, because we're both a little neurospicy. And then we try to bring up a strategy. Today's kind of going to be about strategies a bit, but anyway, talk about inner child for just a minute and like how you see this connecting.
Well, I just see that as we get older, like the whole point of being a parent is that you're hoping that one day your child goes into the world and can be an adult. So,
Right.
For me, it's like, I think that's the whole point of a good parent. And as we go along with this, it's important as you're like, as an person with a difference, it's important to take responsibility for yourself if if you're able to. And that's the best thing you can do is like parent yourself and help you to kind of figure out like, how are you going to retrain, even like with myself, like having a mom who understood that I had ADHD and was kind of at the forefront of it all. We just didn't know the same tools and the same strategies as that we have now. We just didn't have as much data and knowledge. And so even for us, like, who was undeniable ADHD, it was, there's a lot that, we've had to learn over the last, I don't know, like even just a couple of years. Like, it just really has blown up as far as how much information there is. So I think it's just important that, if you're new to this or you're like even just feeling a little bit different, it's really about how are you going to take responsibility for yourself and give yourself some grace. Every parent deserves grace, and so do you when you're parenting yourself.
I love that. And she talks a lot. I just want to go back to this in case somebody's just like getting in for the first time. She talks about this impact model of helping to like, raise your children, and that might have some more complexities. And I like that she talks about that the complex part is that they have a brain-based disorder or metabolic disorder. And brain-based being ADHD and anxiety and depression and autism and, all the laundry list there. I'm dyslexic, so that's a brain-based disorder. And then there's the metabolic concept, right, where it's either, type 1 diabetes, but it's something that's going to be, or food allergies, right? I have a gluten intolerance. So does Josh. We also have been given permission by Josh is my son, he's 18, and by your husband, Brian, who's not 18. But he, both of them have ADHD. And you have ADHD, right? And so there's that we've been given permission by our people to talk about them on this. So just so everybody knows, everybody's consenting adult that we're talking about, if we bring them up. So, okay. So this chapter we've been in really was talking about challenge areas, and her impact model is like, pick something specific that you want to work on. So we'll get into that more, I think, in later chapters. But we had gone through these 6 challenge areas, and it was like, is your family struggling with emotional management, emotional regulation? Is that the big area that you would want to focus on? Or maybe it's for yourself, right? Your inner child is having that issue.
Yeah.
Organization might be an issue. Home and school is another one. Logistics, just like getting out in the morning and bedtime routines and all of that.
So hard.
Yeah. Relationships, how are the
Mm-hmm.
neurospicy in your life, or the people with brain-based or metabolic disorders dealing with friendships? Because even, things like a gluten intolerance can cause all kinds of havoc with friendships and community and things like that, because food is such a huge part of every day.
Yeah.
Um, and then, this idea of like how it impacts the whole family, how it impacts siblings, all of that. It could be a challenge area. And so she's like, pick one of those areas. So the last couple of podcasts we're talking about those, and then figure out, some strategies around it is sort of her next part of her book. And I just wanted to kind of go back to the challenge areas piece for just a second, if we could, because for me, I realized as I was thinking about it the last couple of weeks that it was very much dependent on Josh's developmental level, like where
Mm.
he was in life, and sometimes emotional management was more difficult. And I started to understand what she meant by like picking a problem area, because all of them might be an issue, but there's got to be something that's probably higher on the list,
Yeah.
prioritizing. So I don't know if you feel like that I know Brian just got diagnosed, right?
Yeah. Like literally just got diagnosed, like maybe like a week or two ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can you talk through that a little bit? And then I think we'll get to the other pieces that I wanted us to talk about with reframing. So what was
Yeah.
that like?
It was interesting because he was, he's military, soon to retire. And so because he's
Mhm.
retiring, he can start getting these things looked at. And,
Right.
we've
Because
always
there's sort of a
joked,
shame around it, or
oh,
you don't
yeah.
you don't want to admit it when you're in the
Well,
military, maybe?
that and also he wouldn't have been able to do the job that he did if he had ADHD.
Oh. Oh, I
So,
mean, he does have it, but if he was diagnosed, I mean,
correct.
he
He
just couldn't be
does have
diagnosed with it.
ADHD. He's had it since he was a kid. He's had it his whole life. But
Wow.
because if he had a diagnosis, he would not have been able to do the job that he was doing. Because we are currently at the location where we train all these new airmen, and there are kids who get diagnosed, and as soon as they're diagnosed, they are what they call med boarded, which is they go to a medical board, and then they are reclassified and retrained.
Wow.
Yeah,
Even though his skills, because of his ADHD, made him particularly good at this job.
that's correct. Because we just don't understand. Well, I
Hmm.
don't know. I mean, I'm speculating here, but I speculate that we just don't understand there's such a stigma against ADHD. And
Mhm.
there's just this like, you're a problem child and you're, emotionally unfit and all these things. And it's like he literally has had ADHD since his entire career, and
Wow.
he is going to retire with honors. Like, I mean, whatever. He's not being he's honorably discharged, and he's
Yeah.
never once gotten in trouble. But he also had to work twice as hard as anyone else to actually do that. And the lady who there's a lady with the army who does all the diagnosing here.
Mhm.
And when she finally got all of his paperwork and all the things you have to do to get the diagnosis, she said, "You have such a severe case of ADHD, and I am absolutely gobsmacked that you have done as well as you have done." Like that just,
Really?
yeah, I just think that just proves how intelligent you are and
Mm.
how brilliant you are, because that's the only way that you could have made it with the like the challenges that you actually face.
The brain-based disorder he has.
Yeah. Like your brain just, cuz like for him his like interesting thing is that he also like, so for me, like I have ADHD and impulsive, hyperactive, but then I also have short-term memory loss, right? So there's usually some kind of comorbidity that goes along with it with ADHD. And
Mhm.
for him, he doesn't translate. How does this work? He said something about like, I should just have him on and talk about it.
Yeah,
But
that's good. We should. That'd be great.
he doesn't, he like, so you tell him something,
Mhm.
and he's such a visual learner that he is then taking whatever you're verbally saying, and then he's translating it in his head
Mm.
to the way that actually makes sense for him.
Wow, so he has to, like, put it into words or something he's seeing.
Yeah, I think he might be
Whatever
seeing
that
words, like,
process is, we could be curious with him about that, right? But
yeah.
interesting.
And
Okay.
sort of like with me, it's like if you're telling me something, like, you can tell me words, but then I have to translate them into pictures in my mind. And interestingly enough, like, this is a totally random thing, but this morning we got up super early to take my stepdaughter to the airport. And as we're
Mhm.
driving there, Brian's telling me about some anime that they watched and they just finished. And so he's talking to me about, like, the inciting incident and like he's going through the whole process of it. And I literally like had to just kind of put my hand on his leg and just say, I need you to stop. Because it was, first of all, it was 4:44 a.m. And you all, anybody who's been with us a while, and anyone who's new, like, guys, I don't do
Yeah.
anything until at least 11. So
Yeah.
it's 4:44 a.m. And no, I think it's 4:30 actually. Okay, it's even
Mm.
earlier. And I just
Wow.
like this sheer amount of information that he was telling me, I was trying to
Mhm.
visualize all of them. I actually got like a stomach ache.
Oh.
Yeah, like my stomach was starting to get queasy, and I was
Oh.
just like, I was so overwhelmed that I'm like, if I don't tell him to stop, like this is not going to end well for me.
How did that go, like, when you told him to stop? I'm
He was
curious.
actually very understanding because like
Uh,
I did like in the past I would have like just taken it and not told anybody and just like kind of gotten
yeah.
more and more frustrated.
Yeah.
And I finally was just like, I was like, I'm like, I love you. I love you. But I
Yeah.
think he's learned that when I say I love you and I kind of put my hand on his leg, he's like, oh, okay, too
Oh.
much. And so I don't know. I'd have to ask him like how, but like, it wasn't a,
I think it's so nice too, though, to think about that, like, with your kids,
mm-hmm.
to have some sort of mechanism that lets them know, because I know sometimes, Josh can go, get on it's almost like it's like he needs to get it out, right? And
Yeah.
so he's getting it out and he's saying all the things, but maybe I'm tired or something. But like having a way to like show you love them. I love that. It was like a little pat on the leg and there was a physical component to it, but it was also very loving, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
that
those
was,
little cues, right, that can help
yeah, it's
without
like
having
just
to
to say
talk
like,
through a whole thing of like, this is why, and I need you to stop. And it's, you don't have the energy necessarily to do that at that moment.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so when he was talking to me about his, diagnosis, like for him, however he's translating, um,
Hmm.
he's taking English, translating it in his head, however he just translates it, and then he's translating that English into another language.
What?
And so that's like, so that's the thing is like if he's listening to Arabic, let's say
Yeah.
he listens
Because
to Arabic,
he's an Arabic linguist. Yeah.
hmm so he hears the Arabic word.
Mhm.
He then has to translate it to the English word and then translate it one more time into the word that he understands.
Wow. I remember a story, and I'm not
Tell
gonna get
me.
this right, but I remember this story of you telling me you were trying to tell him to go do something, right? And you were like,
Mm-hmm.
"Go to the counter or go to the whatever it was."
Oh,
And you
yeah.
were sort of like "It's over there," right? And it was the table or I don't remember what it was,
Yeah.
but it was something like but you used a different word, and he literally had no idea what you were talking about. He could not it was just beyond him, and you were, like, pointing to it,
Yeah.
or whatever, or in your mind, you're like, "It's like that, this is ish." So that's oh, wow. Do you
Yeah. Cause,
remember what I'm saying? So I mean,
yeah.
maybe it happens all the time too, I don't know, but
No, I mean, it was sort of like a turning point for us trying to figure this out. Cause like we do communicate so differently. And I joke that like I speak in images and he speaks in grammar. But I think there is some truth to that because so it was like there was something in the kitchen counter and I was like, yeah, go to the table because that was the only word that came to my head. I'm like, it's on the table in the kitchen. And he's
and
like,
he's like, "There's
there
no
is
table in
no
the kitchen."
table in the kitchen. And so it's, so it was like, no,
Yeah.
it's the thing over there, the table, I don't know, and I'm like, I'm saying it in sign language and he doesn't know sign language. And I'm like, it's the long thing with the, like, that's hard that, like, dishes go on.
He just
And
could
he's
not
like,
think of the word counter.
yeah. And then finally I was like, and then I finally figured out the word. He's like, the counter? And I was like, yes, the counter. That's what I've been saying this whole time. Oh my God. And this is like very, like, beginning of our relationship, and it's just
Yeah.
like, but these are the,
Oh.
like, there are words that for him, now looking back, I'm like, oh, this is whatever that comorbidity thing is, like,
Yeah.
I had said one, like, the very first time I ever remember this is that we made some sort of a breakfast and the onions tasted sweet to me. And I was like, oh, these onions taste so sweet. He's like, Megan, onions aren't sweet. They're onions, And I was just like, no, but they're, like, sweet, And he just, like, could not like, he was like, no, this is just not how, it's not the right word. And so if I had known back then, oh,
Mhm.
that's how he translates things, like, he doesn't see it the
Yeah.
same way I do. I like, now I'm so much more curious about, when he has a different word that he
Yeah.
uses.
Yeah.
Um, but back then I was just like, no, I was a pain. I was like, no, but it is sweet. Like, my words are, so we're both battling our own ADHD. So he's like, that's not sweet and no one ever believes me. And I'm like, that is sweet and no one ever listens to me. And so he's like, but no one ever believes me. And I'm like, but no one ever listens to me. And so then we're like going, like, nah. So
And I think that happens with your kids too, because,
yes.
like, there's sort of this, I mean, Josh and I aren't necessarily, I wouldn't have said it was around language and interpreting, but it definitely was. Like, we would get into these, drag out fights about math. And, of course, I'm a math teacher. And so then I'm trying to help him, quote unquote, with math, and nothing. I'm very auditory.
Yep.
He is almost 100% visual intake. We did not have a good match. And he has since found a wonderful tutor. Thank you, Taryn, who does listen to the podcast periodically. We love you. And honestly, I cannot thank you enough. The child is doing wonderfully well in calculus. Thank goodness to her. But it took me a long time. And
Yeah.
I wish it hadn't, right? And so part of what she says in this book is, like, maybe your next decade doesn't have to be as hard as Michelle's. I mean, she didn't say Michelle, but that as my decades, with your
Yeah.
kid or with your inner child, because you can be curious. And when you start being curious, she calls it you coming from a place of inspiration as opposed to desperation.
Hmm.
And I don't know, like, I think I'm thinking of it like I come from a place of curiosity more now. And maybe that's more inspiring, right? I don't know. But
Well, I
I
think
wanted
everybody has to use the word that makes the sense to them, right? So
exactly.
and
Exactly.
that's the thing, like, right now with Brian's diagnosis, is that it's really forcing me to actually, it's so interesting, Michelle. Like, it's forcing me to learn, well, to have patience. That's the first thing.
Mm.
But
Mm.
also I'm seeing so much of like, I'm seeing through him
Your own
my
experience.
own history. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's been really interesting to, like, oh yeah, I remember that. And, like, helping, cuz, like, I can kind of help him along the way of, like, he took Adderall for the first time.
Whoa. How was that?
And I mean, I was like, I don't know how it's going to I don't know how you're going to deal with it. Like, everyone's different, but so I didn't really give him a lot of cues, cuz I was like, I'm not going to, I don't know. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Cuz
Right.
there's
Because
like,
different
oh,
medications work for different people, right?
yeah, and his doc actually was really awesome. The first round we tried to get medication, they treated him like a drug dealer, which was not fun
Yeah.
at all. And that is actually a very real thing that happens. And we can
Hmm.
always talk about that at some point, but with
Yeah.
my
There's so much
situation,
shaming and
so much
not just shaming, but what's the right word for it? It's like it's
accusations.
and suspicion
Yeah,
and
suspicion.
yeah, that there's something nefarious going on. There's something,
Hmm.
you're going to do something bad with these. You're going to go sell them for money to, I don't know.
$50 a
Prop
pop. There you go.
Right. Right. Right.
But the second time around, like his doc said, look, there's two different classifications of drugs. There's the safe drugs and then there's the not so safe drugs. Now, the safe drugs like Wellbutrin and Strattera, and again, this is not medical advice, so
No,
please
we are not
consult your
experts.
doctor.
Yes.
I'm just relaying information that he gave us. But the safe ones like Wellbutrin and Strattera, yes, they're safe, but they were also made for other things. And so they don't cause as much like heart palpitation potentially, whatever. But they're also not as reliable.
Mm.
Whereas on the amphetamine side, they were developed for ADHD and this within this in mind, and they're a little more unsafe, but that's just depending on like what you think safe is. But they're also much more reliable. So
Mm.
he takes it, and then like we're at the med clinic, he takes one, and then we get home and we're kind of like had some breakfast, and then he's like, hey mate, could you come into the kitchen for a second? And I was like, sure. We asking a couple of things, and he's like, I think it might be working. I was like, okay, like what do you feel? He's like, well, there's like this pressure in my head that is not as pressured. It's like I
Uh-huh.
can't, and I was like, okay, it sounds like it's starting to maybe kick in, but like it's not, it's only been about like maybe half an hour, 40 minutes at that point. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you'll know when it's fully kicked in. And then he's like, oh my gosh, you're right. But what was so interesting is this, people, I think, believe that medication is going to be the end all be all. And it's going to like, he wasn't this way because he had me to be like, to temper any expectations. I'm like, this is not going to fix the problem, but
Mm-hmm.
it's going to just help make things a little bit easier. So like, instead of having to work, as his doctor said, like you have to work twice as hard as everyone else to get the same results. You
Mm-hmm.
only have to work like 1.5 times as hard.
Mm.
And the thing is that point, that half a percentage is exponential for ADHD people and for neurospicy people. Like it
Yeah.
is, every single decimal that you go up, it's like that much harder. So
Yeah.
it's been an interesting experience to say the least.
I think one of the things that she talks about in this book is, and I'm kind of curious for you with Brian, like, is there a challenge area that we had talked about? Because one of the things she talks about is like coaching and reframing in that challenge area. So it's like, if you would look at it and you're like, okay, is it more emotional management? Is it organization? Is it home and school? Is it impact on family or siblings? Is it, relationships? Like, what would be the area that a newly diagnosed person like Brian, I mean, maybe it would be different for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was trying to think about like which area I would focus on with Josh because he is 18, he's about to go to college. So for me with him, I feel like one of the big ones is always like logistics. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
going to have to try to build his own schedule
Yeah.
and figure that out for himself. And so, you know, but I don't know. I
No,
thought
it's
that was,
so interesting because it's a really fascinating question, Michelle, because uh, they're kind of in similar situations, Brian and Josh,
oh, really?
in the sense of where they are, like newly diagnosed, trying to figure it out for the first time.
Yes.
Because originally I was thinking like, oh, maybe home and school, but then as soon as I looked at this area, like logistics, I was like, actually, it's fascinating because that is the area logistics for him. It's like you have to learn just how to live with ADHD first or
Mm,
live with whatever complex disorder, like complex situation that you have, whatever brain based disorder you have. The first and foremost, how do you live day to day? How do you
right.
get yourself out of bed? How do you take care of your basic needs? So let's
Yeah.
do, is it Maslow's hierarchy?
Like, yeah, basic safety first and then,
Yeah. So logistics seems like, so this is actually really interesting because I actually had this kind of conversation and thought with him. I was like, look, uh, because he's retiring from the military, which in itself is like a 40-hour a week job. And then he's
right.
also doing this internship, which is another 20 hours. And like, he's just doing a lot of different things. And he also has his own things he wants to work on. And I said, look, I asked him, like, is it is it true that because of your ADHD, is it possible that like the stuff with the military and retiring is not fun and you don't want to have to think about it because all of it's about like how much pain am I been in
Yeah.
from the military and all these things
Yeah.
that I was never allowed to deal with and now I have to start thinking about them. And like let's fill out 20 pages of just like, talking about me, which he hasn't been able to do for 20 years. And so I was like, is it fair to say that this filling this paperwork out is really hard and you're not interested in it? He's like,
Mhm.
yes. I'm like, okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And I was like, is it okay for me to help you right now?
Mm.
Because what I recognize, and this is the thing I didn't tell him, but now we're saying it. I'm saying it, thinking it now. I'm like, he just has to figure out like, how are you going to start with your time? Like, how are you going to take this medication and see how it works? How are you going to
Mhm.
figure out like, oh, how am I going to get myself to sleep on time? Or like, is sleep important to me? Or, am I going to like, there's just these basic needs that he has to figure out first.
Yeah.
And considering that like I had to do that too, it's like you just have to take it one step at it, baby step at a time.
Yeah, and I
And
think, like, when Josh was young, I could there I'm again, I sort of am almost thinking, like, each of these challenge areas were things that I had to decide based on his developmental level. I mean, I don't know that I
yeah.
was doing it consciously. I wish I had been. But, that there was something different. For
Oh yeah.
example, middle school was all about emotional regulation for him
Hmm.
and relationships. And I had to just let go of any expectation around his grades or anything like that because I just had to say, okay, that's not what's most important right now, right?
Yeah.
Like he needs to figure out how to shore those things up. I need to know how to work with him on those things. And I sort of naturally just sort of let some things go that I didn't think were most important. And I think, it's like looking when he was 2, it was only emotional regulation, right? Like
Yeah.
that was all there was. And, we had the
Well, because the
timeout
brain's
chair
not
and
the brain's not
yeah,
developed yet. So like it makes
no.
absolute sense.
And I remember hearing a good friend of the family, she was talking about her son and they were the therapist they had been working with was saying that like a lot of kids who have brain-based disorders are like maybe 2 or 3 years behind in emotional maturity
Mm.
compared to peers, which I thought was interesting. I'm like, I'm not sure if it's maturity, it's just more like regulation, and so that looks like maturity, I think, but it's I don't know, I had some thoughts about it, but I definitely was like, "Oh, that's interesting." If you think about, "Oh, I think my child should be in this place," and this is one of the things in this chapter she talks about is, like, shedding the shoulds,
Mhm.
but that my child should be at this place developmentally because that's what everybody's telling me, or I should be at this place because I'm
Yeah.
40 or whatever it is, right? It's that becomes so hard, and
Or
that's
my
what makes it
partner should be at this place,
yeah,
because he's 40 and it's like, yeah, I mean
yeah,
all of these shoulds of like any kind of relationship, whether it's with yourself or with your child or
yeah.
partner, there's like everyone has an opinion and they're like, "Oh, they're going to
Oh,
tell you it." you know?
yes.
I
It's
mean,
like the
it's
comments
crazy.
feed, right, of your
Yeah.
life, right? If you could put them all into comments that you
Mhm.
hear, you would see it. It's a lot, and she talks about this idea of coaching yourself, coaching your kid, and reframing things as part of the role of the coach. And so I
Mm.
thought I'd go through a couple of these just to kind of see what you think. And I don't know, I thought this was interesting, but she said one of her clients had sort of made this list for themselves, and I know how you hate the list, but I did write it down. So it is in front of you if you want to look at it because I did send it to you. So she said taking things like trouble paying attention
Mhm.
and reframing it to saying flexible thinking. And I was like, "That's sorta interesting." Like, my kid has trouble paying attention. My kid's a flexible thinker. And I'm like, "Huh, okay.
You know why I hate lists?
Okay. Oh,
Because
okay. Why?"
no, because they should all over you. Like they no, they do because like this idea of I'm looking at this list. It's like trouble paying attention is flexible thinking. That's fantastic. What does that mean? right? Like I need to process out, like it's such a nice little chunk, but like I need to process out what does that actually mean? Like literally we could probably do an entire podcast on each one of these things. Like it's like
Do you
cuz
wanna read through
there's
a few others so that people get a
yes.
glimpse of what you're looking at and what is overwhelming you at the moment?
Yeah, like
All
okay,
right.
so I'm hyperactive. No, actually I'm just spontaneous. Okay, that makes a little bit of sense. Okay, fine. I'm impulsive. No, I'm creative and inventive.
Mhm.
I'm hyper focused. It's a positive superpower.
I know.
Okay, sorry. Uh, you know what? I am distracted. Actually,
Changes,
I see changes, and
surroundings that others miss.
that's true.
Mm,
Right. So, like, I think okay. So it's interesting because, like, this first one, trouble paying attention, and then flexible thinking.
yeah,
If you don't understand how that relates, like the trouble pay, because I don't fundamentally understand, like, how does trouble paying attention mean you have flexible thinking? Like I kind of get it with like the uh hyperactivity and
yeah.
spontaneity. I kind of get that, but like
Reframing.
yeah, but like if you
Mhm.
fundamentally don't understand like what's happening in, let's say, trouble paying attention, then how can someone say that's actually flexible thinking if they don't understand what the trouble, why someone's having trouble paying attention?
Yeah, it's interesting. That one is reminds me of a friend at work, and she calls it her broccoli brain. And so it's like somebody says, this is what I think, how I interpret it. It's
Hmm.
like somebody says something to her, and then her brain goes a bunch of different directions with it. And so that's why
Mm,
she has trouble paying attention because her flexibility of thinking, she's not linear at all. And but she describes it as her broccoli brain, which I love, like thinking
interesting.
about all these little, if you think about a broccoli and all the little
Hmm.
trajectories, right? These little caveats, this little whatever, and so it's the attention for her is difficult. But I don't know what yours. I don't know if you would associate with that or identify with that.
No, I mean, when you say it that way, it actually makes a lot more sense. And maybe this is one where I haven't reframed it for myself, and that's why it's hard for me to
Mm,
imagine it. Because, like, trouble paying attention for me is I get distracted because I am seeing a lot of other stuff that everyone's missing. you know,
yes.
like
Yes.
mom's been staying with us for the last couple of months, and
Uh-huh.
it's been hilarious because she's like, I'll tell. So she was okay. This is the dumbest thing, but like, she loves her gum, and
Mhm.
um, we were driving, and I was driving, and like I see her, in her purse pulling out a piece of paper, and I say to her, and okay, I have to back up a little bit, but I say to her, I guess that gas receipt that I got you on accident turned out to be useful after all. Because we pumped some gas, and I didn't ask her. I'm like, does she want a receipt? And not, I figured she did. She didn't need it anymore. She's like, I'm
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
then I was like, oh well, I gave her a receipt. She didn't need it. But then I like see her pull it out. She's like, man, I can't get anything past you. You see it all. And I was like, I guess I do. Yeah. She's like, how did you know that was that receipt? I'm like, because it looks like, I remember you folding it, and it looked like it. I remember like the font, and I was like, it was the receipt that I got you that you didn't need, but it turned out it came in handy.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember Josh getting this report card when he was 2 or something at preschool, and they described him as a little ball of sunshine.
Mm.
And I'm like, that was such a nice way to reframe that
Mm-hmm.
he was hyperactive, right? Like it was a positive, and it was not looked at as a negative, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is part of it is not because everything seems so negative when you're just describing these things, right? Like, so I can say like, "Oh, I can't eat gluten," right? Or I can look at it and go, "I only put things in my body that make me feel really good."
Yeah.
And that is a way to reframe it, right? Like, so it's like, "Oh, I can't, have this or I can't eat this, but I'm it's like, but I can eat the things that make me feel good, right? And so
Yeah.
that is this idea, I think, for everything, right? Like I can say like, "Oh, I'm dyslexic and that's horrible and I can't spell right and blah blah blah." But I also understand that that's given me this ability to sort of critically think and have more fluidity with the way that I might solve a problem. So there's a lot of positives, and it's not that it's only positive. So the superpower thing I do understand. It's not like it makes everything better
Yeah.
necessarily or easier, but this idea that when somebody's saying something about your kid or somebody said something about you, to reframe it. And we've been doing this a little bit with each other. Like I remember the other day I was like, "Meg, I need a reframe right now." And I'm telling you the horrible thing I'm saying to myself or whatever, and you
Yeah.
like gave me the reframe, and I was like, "What a great strategy at least to have, right? Is
Yeah.
the reframe." So I wanted to go through a couple more.
Well,
So
okay.
really quick, because distractible is they reframe to curious.
Hmm.
And I think that's so interesting. Like when you're in class, you ask about a million questions or
Hmm.
want to because you're
Yeah.
curious.
Oh, I love rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Take me down them. Ask me as many questions as you want.
It's
like, like, I just like, let's go down it. Let's, Mike,
right.
our brother, Mike calls me and he's like, Mego, okay. So this thing happened and I just thought I had to call and tell you. And then like he tells me about it. I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm ready for the rabbit hole. What do you got? And then he's just like telling me all this stuff. He's like, and then this happened and that happened. And then we just go off on it. And I'm just
You
like,
guys have so much fun together.
yeah, because I'm just like, let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready for any rabbit hole.
Yeah,
You
and
had
it's
a, yeah,
and like that could be seen as like sort of intrusive, and the reframe on it was eager. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's so interesting. Like I'm asking you a million questions about you because I'm eager, not because I'm trying to be intrusive. And I thought that I don't know. I just liked this concept of like figuring out those things that, you can't stay on point. Well, they see the connections others miss,
yeah.
and I don't know. I just liked this little list because I thought, you're
But see, this is
disorganized. Well,
like,
you're spontaneous, it's like there's ways to, I don't know.
but this is also why, like, I love this list, but like, I seriously think we could talk about each one of them because
Mm,
for lengths of time, because the challenge is that, like, it's great that these are like in bite sized chunks, sort of
mm-hmm.
like a short or like a TikTok or, all these things are great. But the challenge is that, like, okay, if I have been telling myself or if I have had this negative tape
Mm,
playing in my head or playing in my head about my child, then me seeing this little list is not going to change that tape. It's really about like processing, okay, what does distractible mean? Why are they distracted? And then
mm-hmm.
why am I deciding that it's actually curious instead?
Yeah. And is that true in every situation?
Right. Because if it's interesting, there's like distractible and then there's also distracted. So like distractible is curious, but then distracted is also sees challenges and surroundings that others miss, right? So it's like it could be a couple of different ways and a couple of different things. Um and so I don't know, like for me it's like I want to keep talking about it because I think that as we
Mm,
talk more about it, the more we kind of like present it, it might actually kick in because these lists could very easily relate to yourself or your kid, and but it maybe wouldn't, I don't know, you wouldn't think about it because it's like not in a real situation. It's not in a
mm.
real world
It's not in
environment, right?
context. Mhm.
Yeah, because like there's been times like where I've said stuff to you and you're like, okay, Megan, let's actually break this down. What does that look like in your life? Because I'm talking in very generic
Yeah.
terms. And
Yeah.
this feels very generic terms. That's why this list bothers me. It's if I'm, in real time processing it because like
Mhm.
I want to just like I want more information. I want to like and I guess that might seem distracted, but it's actually or maybe it seems intrusive, but I'm actually very eager to learn like how do I do this?
And I think it's interesting the to kind of give context of this list was a parent who spent time,
Yeah.
thinking about their kids' challenges and the way that their kid was described or they were describing their kid.
Yeah.
And they took time to say these things. So this is about a specific kid, right?
Yeah.
And that specific parent. And that specific parent, I think, could be able to answer what your questions are. So
Mhm.
it's maybe a challenge to sit down and say, what are the ways that I would describe my child, or someone is describing my child to me, or someone
Yeah.
has described me to me? And, what are all those report cards we've gotten over the years that, they don't always say little ball of sunshine, right? They say,
Yeah.
if only they could stay on task, if they could only do this, if they could only do that, right? All the shoulds.
Mhm.
And so maybe it's also kind of creating your own list because, taking that time. And I, I want to get to the shoulds piece with this because I think this was this parent's way of shedding the shoulds, right? Like my
Mhm.
kids should be on task. And I think they were reframing it for themselves to kind of be like, well, being curious about it, this is why this is the way it is, right?
Yeah.
About my kid. And I think the shoulds are really, really tough. And I think I'm guessing anyone can relate to this, not just somebody who has a kid who's, you know, got a brain-based disorder or a partner who has a brain, but that for all of us, the shoulds. But I think there's more of them with when you have different when you have kids and you're trying to raise them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also why there's more for the kids, and then that's why when you get to be an adult, you're shitting all over yourself
Yeah.
because that's how you've been raised, basically. And it's just society. I mean, even neurotypical people have shoulds, and you know, I should marry this person, and I should be doing this thing. It's
Yes.
like all
Yes.
there's shoulds everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, and it like this was there. This was I first learned about this term actually in therapy in when I was in my PhD because that
Mhm.
was a big thing. They're like, you're shitting all over yourself, and yeah, it is. It's really hard to shed it. It's hard to.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that are said in these books are really good goals, but you have to figure out how to operationalize them. You have to figure out how you're gonna actually implement them,
Well,
and
I think it's
that's
also
hard.
like it's similar to the challenges. It's like what's the loudest should in your head
Mm,
right now?
mm,
And let's just work on that one
yeah,
should. When I
yeah,
say like take a second, okay, and it's like think about you and think about you in your life and like what is the one should that you say all the time?
okay, I can answer this as a
Okay,
parent.
what's
Okay, so
what's
I have an
yours?
18-year-old. I feel like the should right now is he should be able to take care of himself and be an adult by the time he leaves my house to go to
Mm,
college. That feels like this immense pressure, right,
yeah.
around this. And so, that would include like, okay, we're practicing doing our laundry, we're practicing cooking, we're practicing, right? Like all thinking about all the things you have to do, making sure you have a budget, making sure you have, all that piece of it. And we've been working on it little by little. But the reality is there's a lot of people who are in their 50s, as I am, that don't do these things. So, what am I falling on my sword about? I think is also part of it, right? Because it
Mm,
can damage the relationship sometimes if you're pushing so hard for things to be a certain way.
yeah.
And it's a constant challenge, I think. But for me, that's what I would say is the biggest should.
Okay, so let's think it through then. So let's start off with the first premise of is like he should be an adult by the time he gets out of here.
Yeah.
Um, is that like a reasonable goal?
No. No.
Why?
Because it takes a lifetime to do it. Right? I
That's
mean,
true.
all for all of us. I mean, I think that, but for somebody with ADHD, having watched you, and it's different, right? But there's some things that are not ever going to change for him.
Yeah.
and they're chronic, and he's going to have to learn how to manage them, but that's going to take him time because he's only had the structure of school and he's had the structure of me. So now when he goes out, it doesn't matter how much I try to prepare him for this. It it will be this adjustment for him to figure out his own brain and his own structure, and he might never have a structure in the way I think of it. You know what I mean? It's probably not going to look the same. Like
Mhm.
he's going to need help with certain things, like somebody to remind him about taking out the trash or something. Like he's not, you know what I mean? Like there are things that we can set in place and strategies we can use, but that's always going to be a thing that's going to be hard for him. Being on
Mm.
time to things, that's always going to be a hard thing for him. So I I don't know that it's completely realistic to think I can make sure I've ticked all these things off and they're ready. That's the feeling I want to have. And
Mm.
it's an impossible thing because his brain doesn't function like mine
Yeah.
in the same way. And I can reframe it to all of these things, but there's a reality of the feeling of being like, oh my God, I'm sending this person out into the world and I don't know what their brain's going to do. All I know is I don't know. All I know
Yeah.
is I think she says at some point, we'll talk about it in future, but is like, expect the unexpected, and boy, is that tough when your entire like physiology, and I think this is the part that's like maybe slightly different, like with partners versus parents, is it's like you'll throw yourself in front of a bus for this kid. You know what I mean? Like every cell in your body is trying to protect them. And so it's scary. It's scary anyway to have your kids go off to college. But when there's somebody who you're like, they may not wake up and then they're not going to go to class. And then there's going to be those consequences. And what's that going to mean? And, all of those things, you're just seeing it, and future forwarding, I think you call it. But that's the worry.
Yeah. I'm wondering, in your mind, like when you meet an adult, how do you know you've met one?
Mm. I think people who take responsibility for themselves and the circumstances maybe they're in, or the choices they're making, um, someone who knows is taking time to know themselves.
And like,
And
what
hmm
does that responsibility look like? Like when you say someone taking responsibility, what does that look like to you? How do you
um,
know that they've taken responsibility?
I think the people I think of as adults are people who have taken time to figure out what their limitations are and what their strengths are, and they've figured out how to um, get support for the things they have limitations on,
Mm.
and they own them. Like they own that this is who I am and I'm unapologetic about it. And this is, like those are the people, at least that I have tried to like model my adulthood
Yeah.
around. And so I'm sure it's different for everyone. But that's, I know, for example, like I'm not great at always the detail of things. And so as a manager, I'm always making sure that I'm honest about that. This is a struggle for me. I need that support with somebody going through and making something really linear because I'm going to
Yeah.
probably be more creative and drive everybody crazy a little bit with that sometimes, right? And so then like my admin staff that are like really really good at that, and they take whatever crazy thing I have and they just like, slowly, steadily, you know, make it okay. This we do this, then we do that, that kind
Mm-hmm.
of flow, and so I know that. So I think that kind of thing is what I see as an example.
Did you know that when you were 18 and going to NAU? Like, did you know that about yourself?
I don't think so. Not to this level. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's such an evolution, right? Like, of finding things and going, "Oh, I should never have a job like this because I'm not good at that part." Right? Like, I think it hit me quickly, but I wouldn't say it was when I was 18, and it wasn't when I was right, it was definitely
Yeah.
like, oh, I had a job where I had to transcribe something, and that was when, like, because I had never been diagnosed as dyslexic, and I was making all of these typing errors, and I was like,
Mm,
"Wow, this is not, this isn't gonna be good." I mean, I always knew I had trouble typing, right? That wasn't
yeah.
new to me, but the idea of, like, having a job where that would be what I would do, so funny now with, like, AI and all these things, like, these jobs
Oh,
don't
I
even
know.
exist
They
anymore,
don't
so
even
probably
exist.
anyone young listening would be like, "What are you talking about?" You would, like, you'd have to retype something, yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, we didn't
You can
have
just like
it.
talk into it?
Yeah, 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 exactly. Um, so I think I figured that out probably by my 20s
Yeah.
of, early 20s of like, oh, these are jobs that I should probably avoid and these are jobs I should probably go towards. But yeah, I think it took a while. It took a while.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm curious, like, is there something that you feel like you had going out into the world at 18 that Josh doesn't have?
I think I have a butler
Mm-hmm.
in my brain. And even though it's not always a linear butler. Sometimes it's a little, there's always a reminder of like, do this, then do this, then do this. And I now know he doesn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And this podcast has helped me to know that. And so there's this level of trying to radically accept that what that means for him is something that I cannot anticipate completely, nor can I completely prepare him for or me for.
Yeah.
I think.
Well,
I
because
don't I don't know if that's true, but like that's
I
kind of where I'm
think,
at right now, I guess.
yeah. And I think the reframing, from my perspective, so you can tell
Yeah.
me to go off if you don't like this.
No, I like it.
But I, I heard you say he doesn't have a butler,
Yeah.
as opposed to he has a tremendous capacity to connect and to like to be like to
Yeah.
empathize. He has an tremendous capacity to flexibly think and ask for help, and um, he's incredibly persistent, and he's also very spontaneous. And yes, he is sensitive,
Yeah.
and he's all of these things that ultimately, like, you have helped him to become, and you've provided a foundation. But he has, like, you've provided him a fantastic foundation, but
Mhm.
ultimately he's the one who has to build and lay the bricks down to create the home for himself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that is torture as a parent. Yes, the reframe, and that's why I think this chapter is so important, is like figuring out, pulling out of your brain, and I love how you did that with me. Just pulling out of your brain what is the shoulds, and I think,
Mm-hmm.
what I realize, like as you're saying that, and it's definitely helpful, is he's so good now at me. We did focus on relationships, and he's so good at building those relationships now. And because of that, he has people in his life who accept him for who he is.
Yeah.
And that was not true at the beginning. Middle school years was a lot of people shitting all over me and shitting all over him and oh, why do you leave your water bottle or whatever, right? Kinds of things, and giving him a hard time about who he is. And now he's with a group of people who are very accepting of who he is. And so that gives me a lot of hope because, I know with you that like took a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so in terms of that, like that's such a blessing for kids to feel like they have a friend group. And he said to me at one point, Mom, he's like, you don't know how hard I've worked to find these people,
Yeah.
and I said, yeah, that makes sense because I said, I'm sure I don't actually. And also it makes sense that you're inviting people into your life. And if I can teach him just that, which I think I have worked hard to teach him, and to teach myself too. So when we talk about parenting ourselves, like I've now finally like invited people who really like love me for me and
Yeah.
aren't asking me to be other than I am. And it's such like a beautiful thing. And those people will help him.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And so
think I think
that's
that's
the
the
part.
reframe, right? Like, so
Yeah.
instead of saying like he doesn't have a butler,
Mhm.
um, the reframe in my mind would be he has such a strong community around him
Yes.
who will support and love on him and lift him up.
Yeah. Ooh, that gives me chills. I like to
Yeah.
think about it that way.
'Cause like I don't have a butler and
Mm-mm. You're just
the
fine.
I'm just fine.
I
Like,
know.
yeah, did I miss things? Yep. And did I forget stuff? Yep. And did I learn from it? Yep. That's the other thing I'd say is that he has such an ability to learn and to
Mm.
um he's so resilient.
Yeah.
And
You
that's the part
do.
where it's like
Yeah.
all of us, I meet a lot of neurotypical people who did not face much adversity growing up, and so
Mm.
they've become very plastic in their brains once the brain is fully formed, and because they haven't had a lot of challenges, like it's really really hard for them when a challenge finally hits like in their 30s or their 40s, and they're like it just knocks them off their feet because they've just never had to really develop that resilient brain.
Mm.
And so, as hard as it is and as scary as it is, um, he's actually probably better equipped to handle
Yeah. Yeah.
life. Yes, maybe he's not as well equipped to handle school. Sure. But
Mhm.
like he is, I fully know like he's going to be incredible at life.
Yes.
And, so I think that that's the part for me where that reframing and the should, it's like, should somebody like it does is somebody um I think about Brian actually because Brian's like he's going to be the first person in his family to graduate from college if once he does,
Mm.
and I've always told him like you're so intelligent, you're so brilliant,
Mm.
and I think that should of well but I should have a degree in order to be intelligent. And it's
Mm.
just not true. Like a degree does not tell you how intelligent you are. A degree only tells you that you can make a commitment for 4 years. Like, buddy,
Mhm.
you made a commitment for 20 and you did it, with flying honors
Without the support you needed for your
without this.
brain.
Yeah. So, like, the
Yeah.
fact that you did that, so it's like the fact that he's like Josh has done so much already
Mhm.
um, is pretty remarkable.
And I think that's like just such a reminder like for all parents, and for ourselves, right? That reminding yourself of what you have accomplished and what they have done.
Yeah.
And but it's I also want to say like I don't think I'm unusual
No.
in the feelings, but the problem with it is, as we talked about on one of the other ones, that all the should runs downhill and it
Hmm.
lands on our kids in this really unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And so it's really figuring out I'm very curious, like there's some other strategies she talks about, but the first one is really like shredding these shoulds because it's also not efficient. You know what I mean? Because you're spending all your time worrying about this and obviously like I'm kind of doing it almost unconsciously
Hmm.
until I'm sitting here with you saying it out loud. So it's good to like get those things out loud. And also, really making sure that I'm being careful about that, right? And I don't know. I've done a lot of therapy and I've done a lot of things, but it's still there. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, then what's that going to mean this later today when I'm reminding him to do something? Maybe the way I say it is going to be more should oriented versus just like, let's body mirror together and do this thing or whatever. And it's interesting. So there's always like this balance I think you have to
Yeah.
have as a parent, but it's really nice to have a community. It's really nice to have you to kind of soundboard off this and also to remember like every time I'm doing that to myself, I'm doing it to him.
Yeah. And when we're shredding the shoulds, I think the first place to start is where's the logical, illogical conclusion that it's going? So,
Mhm.
you're saying he should be an adult by this point. Okay, so what does that mean? And what happens if he doesn't? What will that mean?
Yeah.
And is that real?
Well, because
Or
I
is
think
it is
a
it a
lot of times, like, your brain is going to, like you said, the illogical conclusion is that he's gonna end up on a box on the
mhm.
street and right, or whatever, or
Yeah.
not make it, or, something horrible, right, is where
Yeah.
your brain is going, even though you don't say it.
You're right. And
Yeah,
so the
and
reality
that's
is
not
like is that
real.
is that his real?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that the
Yeah.
reality or not?
Yeah. No. That's like
Right?
whatever delusional on the, emotional health rung we were talking about, it's just not a real. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
fear. The fear is
It's
real, but
it's
the
fear.
the
Yeah. And it's your fear. It's not his fear.
no, he's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
But
saying that
he's
to a friend, like, like, follow the lead of them, because, one of the kids is in middle school, and I'm like, they were so happy with their grade, you know, and their
yeah.
grade was like a D plus, and the mom was like, I was like, just like follow his joy, because where is he? He's so proud of that D plus. Like, that's like, it was hard earned. He feels good about it. And she was kind of like, well, I mean, and I'm like, yeah, but like, he's in school, he's making friends, he's doing all these things. And it was like helping her reframe. And we
Yeah.
all need that. I think all of us parents need that person who's going to come in and help you reframe sometimes, because it's so easy. It's
Yeah.
so easy. It's way too easy
Michelle, what would happen if you didn't remind Josh this weekend?
to do something.
Yeah.
What was interesting is, um, I did not last weekend. I
Mhm.
was really busy. I had a bunch of stuff that was going on, which is kind of unusual for me. I'm not really a weekend warrior person, but and he texted me. He's like, "Well, mom, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this." So he did have that idea. Like, but we did talk about it the day before. So
Mm.
we did, and I do think that it's not so much reminding, but a strategy that works for him. And this is the part where I'm like, do you need me to do this strategy with you right now? And that's kind of where we're at. Is
Yeah.
is are these strategies we found that help, which for him is rehearsing. Um, is that would you like me to help you rehearse today? And that's now how I'm saying it, as opposed to like, don't forget to do the da, 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 da. I'm like,
Mhm.
would you like some help rehearsing today, or do you feel like you don't need that today? And that's kind of where when I say remind, that's our way of like reminding, right?
Mm.
Because sometimes
Well,
his
and
brain
that's a
needs a lot of support, and on a day like he hasn't slept well, or he has had something emotional happen the day before, and some days he doesn't need that at all now.
well, and I think that you already have reframed that. You said you instead of doing reminders, you do rehearsals,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's it's such an important conversation to have, especially when people get older and as you're
Yes.
navigating this. Like, I mean, that's what I asked Brian. I'm like, do you need help getting this paperwork filled out?
Right. I
And
mean, it's
then
just
he's
like
like,
somebody, if their leg's broken and they need
right.
help to like get their crutches because they're across the room or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and I mean that in a sense of like, your brain isn't broken, but your brain may need support. So I don't like the analogy exactly, but it's like this idea that, but his brain is not the same every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also
And
I think it's important while we're providing support to people, it's also important to know like what your boundaries are to help with
mhm.
that support. Because I told Brian,
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I'm happy to help you, but when we're doing this, if I get any guff from you, like I don't want to do it or whatever, like Major Mayaduski's going to come out and she's going to be in charge. He's like, yes, ma'am. So, like that's it's like I'm
Mhm.
happy to help you, but like I'm not going to like sit here and you
Get
know
abused.
yeah, like if you're frustrated because you have to fill this out, like I'm not going to help you with that. Like so like
I
if I'm
love
going to do it,
I
we're going to
love
do it.
that you said that. Yeah, because the math one is now our boundary. Like, that is not something he and I do together.
Yeah.
We just don't. And our relationship, and he said to me at one point, he goes, "Mom, like, we have a great relationship except math." And I thought,
Mhm.
Yeah, why do we need that to be a thing?
Yeah.
I don't need that. There is nothing good that comes. You've seen us do it. There's nothing good that comes. I'm a very good tutor. I'm a very good math teacher. I am not one good one for him.
Yeah. Well, and you've also shown him,
Yeah.
again, I'm going to reframe this.
Yeah.
You've shown him how to accept help from somebody outside of the family.
Yeah, exactly.
So as opposed to being like, oh, this is
No,
about
you're
a
right.
problem with
Right.
our relationship, this is now an incredible opportunity for him to learn he can ask for help.
And I think that's a should that a lot of parents have. I need to be everything to this kid. I have to
Yeah.
be all the parts. And the
Yeah.
reality is you can't be. And you shouldn't. Be. Like in a way, right? Like it's
No,
important
you
that
absolutely shouldn't. That's a little.
that's a full on.
If they're still hanging on your teat at 18, like you're in trouble. Okay, you did something wrong. Could you imagine? Someone just comes and latches on.
Megan.
18. I can't stay on point. No, I just see connections that others miss.
Well, I'm very curious if others in our community have thoughts about, their shoulds and any reframing we can help with. We're always down for trying anyway. Being curious with you.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy we got to have this conversation today. It was really lovely.
Me too. Even though it was like so early in the morning, I wasn't sure my brain was going to turn on. I was like, at the very beginning of this, I don't know if you could hear, I was kind of like, that's kind of like just sort of, rusty trying
Just
to
so
talk.
everybody knows, I mean, whenever you're listening to this in our world right now, recording, it is 8 a.m., 8:04.
8:04 a.m. people.
And that is at least 3 hours before Miss Megan Rosie's brain turns on generally.
It's true.
Yeah.
And
I'm
I've
like
been up.
5 a.m. person who I wake up with my brain on.
True.
Which
But you didn't today.
No, today I didn't.
Michelle,
Today
can I tell you?
Yeah.
I was like, I got done. We dropped off Emma, and then it's like 5:00 we get home. And I'm like, I don't know if Michelle and I are going to podcast on time. I don't know if she's going to be on time because, I haven't heard, like, she hasn't thumbs up my message or anything. And then I go to make breakfast, and it's like, 5:30, and like we're eating breakfast. I'm like, you guys, I don't know if this is gonna happen. Like this may not happen because like I still haven't heard from Michelle. Like we may not be podcasting today. I don't know because like I'm up, but like I don't know how much longer I can go.
Me, I'm usually in bed by 9, at the latest. And
I know.
I was out with friends last night. So yes, I was up a little later, didn't do my homework. I got in trouble with
I know you got in such trouble, and I was here, and I was like,
already.
okay, I guess I should give her some grace because she gives me grace every freaking time.
I thought it was funny. I'm like, oh, sorry.
The roles have reversed, Michelle.
And Megan has become the master. I love
like,
it.
What is happening? We're in like
we're an upside down world.
We're upside down world. Yeah, we're on Earth too. Oh my gosh.
I love you.
I love you too.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Spicy Brain Podcast, brought to you by Spicy Brain Studios. This week, we dug into the essential guide to raising a complex kid and worked through the strategy of shedding the shoulds. Next week, we're going to go a step further. We're going to actually learn how to identify the shoulds and start changing the language that we use around them. So make sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you're enjoying the show, leaving us a review really helps other neurospicy folks find their way here too. But until then, here's to a great end of the week. And remember, stay curious.
And joyful.
With radical acceptance. High kick.